Portland is attempting to become the infamous Seattle. Portland is trying to make a name for themselves by, well, creating quite another autonomous zone. And I mean, this is really preposterous at this point. The entirety of the left is just, look what they're doing, right? They're taking advantage of the situation that there's no police, that the police are being defunded to utilize that specific situation to their benefit. All they're doing is, well, murder. They're committing murder. They're going and burning down monuments such as the great George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, who's without ideologies. We wouldn't have the freedom that we are granted today. And these are not protesters. They're not. They never were. Since the start of the rioting, they have always been rioters. They have always been criminals, taking advantage that businesses were being shut down, that the cops were being defunded. So, Portland is trying to create a name for themselves by, well, creating an autonomous zone. And it is taken by criminals. Let's read a little bit what it says here. Portland protesters, well, protest is the word the media is using, who have created their own autonomous zone by pitching tents and rebuilding barricades of criminals. Acting Customs and Border, okay. These are individuals that are planning, organizing with premeditation to destroy federal property and harm federal officers and agents. That is the entirety, that is the whole purpose of the autonomous zones. They're armed with weapons, hammers, guns, Glocks, all of the above, and they're utilizing these weapons to, well, commit their crimes. The crimes they couldn't commit beforehand because there were consequences present if you were to commit one of those crimes. But now, because the left is defunding the police, this is what's happening. And as I said in the previous video, this country is turning into a war zone. Joe Biden's America wants this to happen. He wants to defund the police. He wants to open the borders for MS-13 terrorists to enter the country and, well, decapitate people and rip their hearts out. So, I mean, it's absurd at this point when you really think about it. Those are criminals. Those are not protesters. I mean, I absolutely agree with this rationale from Morgan. Mark Morgan. I 100% agree with his rationale. Since the start of the rioting, these people haven't been protesters at all, not for 1 second. They were taking advantage, as I previously said in the video, of, well, the shutting down of businesses. And now they're taking advantage that the police are being defunded in certain cities because the left's ideology is extremely stupid and unfathomable to acknowledge how stupid their ideology is. I mean, look at this. The protesters in Portland began to set up tents in a park near the federal courthouse early Wednesday and barricaded streets to create their own autonomous zone, likened to the since disbanded Capitol Hill organized protest in Seattle. Demonstrators began erecting tents in downtown Portland's Lonsdale Square across the street from the federal Pioneer Courthouse, one of the federal properties Homeland Security sought to protect by bringing federal officers into the city 2 weeks ago. So now what's going to happen is, our national heroes, right, the police, the federal government, they're not completely exterminated. They're not yet. Trump is going to send the military into these cities where the police are retiring early because of the left. And it's going to get ugly. It's going to get really ugly. I mean, Trump has already deployed troops in Seattle, taking care of Antifa, the leftist organization who is known for their obnoxious murders and the rationale, which is to murder and loot. And Antifa will be exterminated. They will. And the only way that's going to happen is very simple. By voting for Trump. I've said this in every episode. I'm going to keep on saying it because that's the only way where these problems are going to be sent to an abyss, I guess you can say, in terms of terminology, so that they can always be forgotten. The defundment, that we will fund our police. Antifa will be taken care of. these autonomous zones such as CHOP and CHAZ will also be taken care of. And if you didn't know, in CHOP, actually, what was it? A little girl, if I'm not mistaken, I think she crossed one of the barricades, which is like when you're leaving the CHOP zone. So she crossed one of the barricades and she got shot and she died from one of the so-called protesters. But the mainstream media, they don't want to cover this because it's only going to show more and more corruption, and they can't cover it. I mean, I was looking at a CNN article today that was saying that Trump has done a hopeless job with the coronavirus. But then when you look at the mortality rate, the United States, yes, it has the most cases, but it has, well, the most testing. It has about 45 million testing, and China, I don't think even has 10 million. And our mortality rate is the most diminutive out of all the countries that have had the coronavirus. But the media won't cover this. The media only covers what the society in general wants to hear. Because the society doesn't want to hear that Trump's doing a good job. They just want to hear he's doing a terrible job, a hopeless job. And, I mean, they're just going to keep doing it because they're envious of how good our president is. And it says here, Morgan said that the Trump administration is supporting law enforcement. Yes, but the mainstream media, they're only saying that Trump hates the police and that he wants to defund the police, yet when all he's been talking about is funding the police and how we need to fund them consistently because of what they do for us. And quote, the Department of Justice is going to be involved in this. DHS is going to be involved in this, and we're really taking a stand across the board. We're going to do what needs to be done to protect the men and women of the country. That's all the police have done, and we're just shitting on them. Not we're, but the left is shitting on them because they don't care about them. The left solely cares about themselves, and they always have. They want to be perceived as people with high power, to feel like they are, I guess you can say, the opposite of infamous, powerful. And if that happens, then the world as you know it will turn very distinctive. We'll have war zones on the streets, civil wars. And let me tell you, the polls have got it all wrong. Joe Biden, according to the mainstream media, is leading Trump by approximately 20% in almost every state. But that's not going to happen. The same Biden supporters that supported Hillary, they're going to cry this year just like they cried in 2016. Because Trump is going to be reelected. He will be reelected, and the country will have a surge in, well, being powerful. Our country will be the most powerful country than it ever was. Our economy will be the best ever. And these autonomous zones will be brought to a halt.